I do think there's a lot of members who, myself included, although I don't consider myself a member, but whatever. A lot of people who they look for what they want to hear. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Whenever I tune into conference out of morbid curiosity, I am looking to see like, okay, what are they gonna say that pisses me off today?
Yeah.
Like, and that's maybe
And
not.
you'll find it. I mean, that's just confirmation bias. It's just the humans everywhere do that.
But what Elder Hamilton said was, the Lord operates through conditional if-then statements. Even God's love is subject to conditions. I was done at that point. I think it's the same way with God. I think He is like, just like, you're doing your best, and I will accept that as long as you were trying, sincerely trying, or as TBMs like to say, they like to use the word striving. As long as you are striving, I will, I'll do the rest. It'll be okay, and
Striving and trying to what?
to be the best version of yourself. And you're not just, coasting through life. I do think that God expects us to make an effort, a sincere effort.
That sounds like a condition, Zach.
I was done at that point. God damn it. Well, you got me there, Glenn.
This is Infants on Thrones,
Baby steps.
You want someone to preach to?
the philosophies of men,
I like magical
You
toys.
want religion, do you?
mingled with humor.
I don't believe in them.
There will be many willing to preach to you the philosophies of men mingled with humor.
We are evolving.
Baby steps.
You can buy anything in this world of money.
Look for the good in everything. Look for the people who will set your soul free. It always seems impossible until it's done. Look for the good in everyone.
All right, welcome back to Infants on Thrones. I'm Glenn Osland, and this is episode 797. And I'm not quite sure what I'm going to call this one, because I could go Confessions of a Millennial PIMO NOMO or Confessions of a Millennial POMO. But PIMO being physically and mentally out, talking with Zach, who I talked to last August in episode 743. And some things have changed for Zach over the last several months. He's no longer physically in, mentally out PIMO millennial. He's just kind of an out, a physically out, mentally out. So I don't know if I go POMO or if I go PIMO NOMO. So we'll figure out how I title this episode. But it was a really nice conversation with him. I really like Zach. I can see him working his way, trying to make sense of certain things that I can relate to. I certainly have gone through similar types of things I cared about, that I learned about as a Mormon, and things that were hard to let go, and things that began to change and morph. And it was just a fascinating conversation getting to know Zach as he struggled with some of the messages that came from this last conference. It was just a really nice conversation, and I'm happy to share it with you starting now. So
Hang on to them hats and glasses, cause this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
So I got to tell you, tonight is game 5 of the Phoenix Suns in the playoffs, and that's a big deal to me.
Oh, wow.
So for me to be here with you right now is an even bigger deal. I hope you appreciate that.
I do.
And I'm not saying that to guilt you at all. Do not feel guilty by that. I'm just saying, hey, it's good to see you again. How you been?
Likewise, good. Man, crazy busy. Are you a Phoenix Suns fan then?
Of course. I have been since I was a kid.
Nice.
My dad was a photographer for the Phoenix Suns when I was little.
Boy.
Yeah. He had Wilt Chamberlain fall on him once. He tells me that story every time we talk about it. Claim to fame. Wilt Chamberlain fell on him while he was taking pictures. And then he said, you probably want to move back a little bit.
Oh my God.
that story. But yeah, so I've been a Phoenix Suns fan my entire life, and yeah, it's 2-2 right now. They've been kind of beat up by the New Orleans Pelicans, and we'll see what happens tonight. But
Wow.
yeah, but you've been beat up a little bit too, haven't you, Zach, by the general authorities? And
Oh my goodness.
because I remember the last time we talked, I don't remember how long ago it was, but the Confessions of a Millennial PIMO, is that what I called it?
Yeah,
Like
that was it. Good title.
and what I remember that was that you really you want the general authorities to be these really great examples of goodness and like a voice and a mouthpiece of God. And so when there's things that they do that aren't that, it's quite frustrating to you. Am I reading that right, Zach?
That's absolutely right.
All right. So tell me what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's been a year since we talked or maybe more or less. I can't remember. But I've gradually just kind of lost confidence in those people. It's at the point where I don't know if I'd even, and I'm sure that, your listeners are probably nodding their heads right now. Like, this is the natural progression. Like,
there's only 4 listeners anymore, Zach. So you don't need to worry about that. This is just,
nice.
We used to have dozens and dozens, and now there's like 4 or 5, but
Okay,
you're one of them. So
nice. Well, I don't know if I would call myself PIMO anymore. I mean, I can't get rid of my records because that's just the arrangement that my wife and I have. And but I don't really consider myself a member anymore, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so it was August 2nd that that episode came out. So it's not quite been a year. So you've had in the last, I don't know, 8 months maybe.
Yeah.
This shift.
Yeah.
That's so how are you dealing with it?
I mean, I'm not angry. We actually put on a plaque the habits of acceptance that you and I went over.
Oh, okay.
Hold on. It's right here. Let's see. Yeah. 7 caring habits, supporting, encouraging.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah. We got it in the hallway.
Yeah. That's from William Glasser, who was a therapist. That stuff was really impactful for me. So has it replaced the proclamation of the family, or is it hanging up right next to it?
Oh, we don't have a proclamation in our house.
Right. Yeah, I figured you wouldn't want one of those.
We do have a picture of the LA Temple because it's
Okay.
a beautiful building, and I have fond memories of being there. But yeah, it's super interesting. She's still in. I don't really affiliate myself with the organization just because they've kind of blown it, in my opinion. I'm not angry, but I cannot keep going back to the abuser. There comes a point where it's like, no, this is hurtful to me and to others. And gospel principles, absolutely 100% still believe in them, but I'm not going to enable. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. You're using language of abuse and enabling. I see that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll in full transparency, Zach, I struggle with this because I know that people are in different places in their faith exit. And I know that there are certain predominant narratives that are out there in the ex-Mormon podcasting world about how the Mormon church is the big bad abuser. And, I don't disagree that there's abuse, but I feel like holding on to that story is disempowering to people. So I might challenge and push back on that. If I do, I don't mean to minimize any of the suffering that you've had, because I imagine that your situation is similar to mine was, where you're just born into this religion and you're taught from a certain age and you just believe that this is it. And why wouldn't you? Because that's what you're told. And there's all kinds of things that happen that we're conditioned to trust the authority figures and to shut off our own trust in ourselves. If our intuition is telling us to do something different than what the leaders are doing, then we must be wrong and they must be right. And so to me, that's definitely an act of violence and abuse that happens. But I think like once you reach a point of recognizing that it's happening and knowing I can turn that around, I don't have to give my power away to the Mormon church anymore. That at that point, that's when I would like to see the narrative shift, that the Mormon church is no longer abusing me, even though it might have happened in the past. But really what happened as a result of that abuse is it kind of woke me up to my own power that I didn't know that I had. I wasn't told that I was told that I had the power to obey, the power to follow. But what about the power to create? And you mentioned there's certain gospel principles that you still believe in and still form values for you. So creating those things that are really important to you. Anyways, I'm getting on my soapbox and I'm preaching about something that I don't even know if you're interested in right now. You wanted to talk about General Conference.
Oh yeah, no, this is great though, and super important. I think it's really easy to put it in a box, and just say the church is bad, but it's so much more nuanced than that. And I think people are, we're able to, a lot of us, control our reactions to things and move past things. And so I agree. I think it's important to keep it all in perspective. And I would be incredibly ungrateful if I just threw it all down the garbage disposal and said it was all bad. I mean, my mission made me bilingual in English and Spanish. I had a lot of great life experiences from that. So there's still a lot that's what makes it so hard, right? Is because it's had such an imprint on people's lives.
Yeah.
You can't just be like, well, screw all of this. Like there's a little bit where it's like, well, I'm holding on to some of these souvenirs I've picked up along the way, even if I don't want to go to Disneyland anymore,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
But
so what was your experience with General Conference that made you reach? Because I remember you wanted to reach out. I think it might have even been in October for General Conference that you wanted to do something, but your wife didn't want you to come on and talk. Was that it?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Just because Holland gave this talk about musket fire.
Oh, I remember that. Oh, that was like the BYU assembly.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I told Sarah, I'm like, man, I would love to talk to Glenn about this. And she's like, well, let's just wait and see if anything else horrible happens, and then we'll go from there. And then conference happened. So I'm like, well, and she was horrified too. I had a lot of family and friends, some of them like really TBM. They're like, what is happening? Like I was getting so many texts during conference from people that live in Utah and Idaho and all these places where, traditionally they agree with stuff. And they're like, Zach, this is weird, man. Like what are they saying? I'm like, well, I can tell you what I think they're saying.
Are you talking about this last conference?
This most recent conference.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
So I've only listened to one conference talk, and it's the one that I did the smackdown on, because there was that meme, the Neil L. Anderson talk. So I'm not really prepared as far as like knowing what the content was, but I'd love to hear what your reaction was to any of it and talk about that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And these two talks that I've got here, if we just go through, got some quotes.
I started looking at that Tad one.
Oh my God.
In fact, I started recording myself reading it because I'm like, I'm going to do a little smackdown with it. And I got like a couple of paragraphs in. I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? Because I felt myself getting like worked up and frustrated, and
it's so bad.
And I'm like, why am I doing that? Like maybe because then I can share some insights with people on a podcast. I don't know, but is it really worth it to me to put myself in that position where I'm just getting so frustrated and feeling like I wish I could correct this guy, but I know that I can't.
Right.
I know that I can't. It's just like this impotent rage. So then I just kind of like turn it inwards. And so what can I correct in myself if I need to correct anything in myself? And I don't know. But yeah, so I'm interested to hear.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I totally agree with what you said. I think I'm trying to fix things inwardly as well, and there's not a whole lot that can really be fixed. I think last time we talked, it's like I want to try and change the church. I mean, that ship has sailed. There's a lot of people that interact with me, and they see me as an inclusive person, and sometimes I'll be at church watching the kids. I'll attend very infrequently, mostly just to help with babysitting, and I'm there for people who feel ostracized and all that. But most Sundays I have shows now, so it's hard to go. It's a good excuse.
It's a nice excuse.
Yeah, but I did manage to watch conference. I watched, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 talks, just out of morbid curiosity, and then I was rewarded with horror and just being appalled at everything that I saw. But we could start with Oaks. I don't know why he loves to talk about gay marriage so much. It's like every other talk is like, the Lord's standard will never change, and here are 10 Roman numerals explaining why. It's like, dude, like, find a new topic. But
they're not about finding new topics. They're
not.
No, it's you get your neural pathway a certain way, and then you like freeze it in carbonite and don't change it.
Yeah, well, I have this theory, and this is just me being cynical, but I think that the LGBT community has become something for the church to rally against.
Yeah.
And maybe that's cynical, but it gives them, it forces their narrative, and
it reinforces the narrative, because there's there's this narrative of persecution, and the church has received so much pushback because of their reaction and response to just what's happening in the world. And so that's being interpreted through this filter of, oh, well, then, like, what's the scripture that says that blessed are you? I think this is in the Beatitudes, like, blessed are you when you're persecuted in my name, for my sake. And so, like, they're like, okay, great, yeah, we're getting persecuted on here, so we must be onto something here. And then there's the whole morality thing,
That's what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
I'll try to be fair, though, and some of these quotes that are good, I'll try to point out good things while we're going through. But I could just start at the top, and we can go down the quotes and just talk about them if you want.
Sure,
that works.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's 3 boxes. This is from Church News. So, to help us develop the godly attributes and the change in nature necessary to realize our divine potential, the Lord has revealed doctrine and established commandments based on eternal law. I mean, it's very well written. It reads like a court justice.
Do you believe that statement?
Let me look at it again. Develop the godly attributes, change in nature necessary to realize the divine potential, the Lord has revealed. So, to go along with any of this, you have to believe in God. Otherwise, it just goes in one ear and out the other. I do believe in God, so there's a certain amount of this that I agree with.
Do you believe that God has decreed certain rules that must be followed, or else?
I think so. I mean, don't kill people, don't commit adultery. I mean, those are commandments, right? I believe in those for sure.
Okay.
Don't bear false witness. Love other people, love God, that kind of stuff. Sure.
Okay. So read that quote again to me.
Okay. To help us develop the godly attributes and the change in nature necessary to realize our divine potential, the Lord has revealed doctrine and established commandments based on eternal law.
Okay. So mostly you agree with that.
I don't think there's anything problematic with that quote, honestly.
Okay. All right.
Let's see. Kingdom of glory we receive in the final judgment is determined by the laws we choose to abide in our Heavenly Father's loving plan. I do have a problem with this quote.
Read it a little more slowly.
Okay. It says, the kingdom of glory we receive in the final judgment is determined by the laws we choose to abide in our Heavenly Father's loving plan.
Okay.
So yeah, we're already one quote in. I'm like, no.
So what is it about this quote that you have an issue with?
So it's the subtext, which could be interpreted different ways. But whenever I hear anybody talking about kingdoms of glory, I'm transported back to this Sunday school lesson that I had when I was a kid, where they're like, once you, it's like a dead end. Once you go to a kingdom, that's it. Like, you got third place. Sorry, you should have worked harder. This is what you get. Have fun. Like, I personally, and I have some family members that feel this way too. I believe if there is three kingdoms of glory, which there may not be, I believe in this idea of kingdom hopping. You know, if you maybe, if there were some circumstantial things, or if you feel really bad in the next life and you want to progress, you can, because God is all about progression. So whenever I see quotes that are like, and this is the end of it, thanks for playing the game of life, here's your ribbon, here's your, you know, silver trophy or your bronze trophy, and, you know, you should have gone to church more, you should have kept more command. Like, I don't really buy that. I think God is more about, you know, allowing people to progress in the next life. That's just a personal belief that I have.
Okay.
But
Yeah. So the part of that quote that that you take issue with is how restrictive and rigid it is.
Yeah.
You know, where if you imagine eternity stretching out where there's no beginning and there's no end, and then you've got like this mortal probationary period, which is a little teeny tiny speck of sand in an expansive sea of eternity, that your position through all of eternity is determined by how well you behave in this little teeny tiny speck when you're blindfolded and you don't really know anything, and
right.
you've got all of the deck stacked against you, with all of your urges, you know, just like human nature and the natural man, which is an enemy to God, that it just doesn't seem to really sit well with you that a God would restrict you because of that you feel like within this eternal realm that there's continual progress and growth and experience. It's not just this is it.
It's one of my biggest problems with Mormonism is people have this, they think it's so great. They're like, isn't it great that people aren't going to go to hell? There's 3 places you can go. Isn't that wonderful? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, but let's deconstruct that. What you're saying is you can only be with your family if you are in the top place. And frankly, there's nowhere else I would rather be than with my family, with my spouse and my kids. Mm. So that's wonderful that we're not all going to burn in hell. But if you're saying that unless I abide by what is being dictated, I won't ever see my family again, that is hell, as far as I'm concerned. And if you're saying that it's a dead end if you don't meet certain criteria, I don't know. I don't like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Why do you think the church and especially Oaks in this case, places such emphasis on, but when you reach the final judgment, the verdict is going to depend on the choices that you made in this life? What's the payoff? What's in that for him to take that kind of a stance?
Well, I don't know. I mean, not to be too crude, but I think it retains membership through fear. I think it does keep people in, because it's like, you better, shape up or bad things are going to happen. I have a friend who used to be Jehovah's Witness, and they showed me some of their pamphlets. It's like, oh man, like people running from lava flow and stuff like that. Right. So yeah, I think that is part of it, but I also do, as the optimist in me, wants to believe that a lot of these guys genuinely care and they don't want people to. There's a really great musical playing on Broadway right now called A Strange Loop. Have you heard of it? Or
I have not. No.
Oh, yeah, it's so good. I mean, it's definitely not for kids, but it's about a guy who's writing a musical, and he's writing a musical about a guy writing a musical. So it's like a loop, like that's what they call it. But there's a whole song about, it's called Periodically. And it's a song about a dad who has a gay son. and he's saying he doesn't want his son's soul to be wasted, and he wants him to repent, not for him, the dad, but so that his kid can see Jesus. He genuinely cares about his kid, even though he's being incredibly manipulative. And hey, we lost our connection there. There we go. All right. Where did we leave off?
You were describing the plot of that musical on Broadway, and you were saying something about being manipulative.
Oh, yeah. So the father in the musical is reaching out to his son and saying that he wants him to repent, not for him, the dad, but so that his son can see Jesus. He doesn't want his soul to be wasted, and wants him to repent, not because of fear, but because of love. I think that is a place that a lot of LDS leaders are coming from, even if they're hurtful. I do think a lot of them are well intentioned. Still,
I agree with that. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think it's really easy to look at it and go, oh, it's this reason, as if it's not like a composite of many, many, many things that are going on.
Yeah.
I do think that the rise of the priesthood itself was really a defining moment in early Mormonism, that it created almost. I remember having this conversation with my sister and brother-in-law many years ago, before they left the church. We were driving out to the rededication of the San Diego temple, so whatever year that was, however long ago that was, and I was going through my slow burn out of Mormonism, where I was deconstructing and challenging, and I was asking questions about priesthood, and like, I didn't really understand if there is an atonement and Jesus died for everybody's sins, why do we need the priesthood blessings? Like, why do we need that stuff? Like, didn't the atonement already cover that? What is the need for it? And I couldn't really understand it. I couldn't really make any sense of it, except that if the church members, if the authorities say, you can't get this unless you go through us,
right,
then there is, like, it's basically saying it's validating their role. Like, you need to listen to us as your leaders, because we have this power over your eternal salvation, so listen to us. And it really makes them feel big and important, and sets up this whole incentive system to be big and important too. And when I started deconstructing the priesthood, that was a huge shift for me.
Interesting. Yeah.
So when Oakes stands up and says something like that quote that you shared, I think I agree with you. I do think that he cares, and he wants people to not have to suffer, and he's convinced himself over the years that this is the way to do it. But I also think that there is a huge part of this that is an ego stroke for him.
Oh yeah,
others,
for sure.
Like, I'm standing up here. I can't do Oakes, but,
it's pretty good.
You should listen. Hey, his son Dallin Oakes Jr. was. I took a linguistics class from him at BYU. I really liked him. He was nice.
Yeah, I mean, some of these guys are really nice. I mean, even Brad Wilcox, who got in some hot water for things he said. I know him personally, and he and I have talked a little bit, and he was just so embarrassed from what I could tell. I mean, he issued an apology, and I mean, you got to be so careful what you say now in today's world. I think a lot of these guys, they think because they're apostles or 70s or whatever they are, they can just say whatever they want. And now they're realizing in 2022, oh wait, so apostles can get canceled too, like it's a real thing. It's crazy, so it blows my mind how much more pushback there is now in the information age than I think there was, even when I was growing up. Like people just accepted what was said a lot more, I think. But
yeah, I listened to that Brad Wilcox. I toyed with doing, I don't think I did a SmackDown. I may have, I don't remember. I remember
No.
thinking about it and watching it and spending some time with it. And I just thought, I can see why, things that he said could be problematic, but it really feels like making a mountain out of a molehill. Like it just seemed like an overreaction on the side of the outrage. Now I'm going to get canceled, but that's how I felt about it. Like I would love to live in a world, Zach, where everyone respects everybody else's opinion, even when we're wrong. And like, we're all humble. We all recognize, like, I don't really know everything that I think that I know. And you've got something that I can learn from.
Yeah.
And I'm going to explain to you the way that I see things. Yeah. And I'd like to hear from you how you see things. And I expect that there's going to be differences, and let's explore those differences in a spirit of curiosity, and maybe we'll get there. That's what I'm trying to be for me. But yeah.
Well, he even says that in the talk. Let's see. He says, as followers of Christ, we should love our fellow men. We should live peacefully with those who do not believe as we do. I mean, 100% agree. I mean, that's incredibly well stated.
Yeah.
So doing that is another thing entirely, but I'm glad he said it. I mean, I do think there's a lot of members who, myself included, although I don't consider myself a member, but whatever. A lot of people who they look for what they want to hear. Like, I'm not going to lie. Whenever I tune into conference out of, morbid curiosity, I am looking to see, like, okay, what are they going to say that pisses me off today? Yeah. Like, and that's maybe
and
not.
You'll find it. I mean, that's just confirmation bias. It's just the humans everywhere do that.
Yep.
We all find what we're looking for.
Yeah, we do. So, yeah, Sarah, she's so nice. She says, I'll tell you what they said that wasn't stupid, and you don't have to. Like, all right, cool. So,
does the things that she thinks are not stupid, are they the same things that you think are not stupid?
We're a lot more aligned now. I think both of us are frustrated with how women in the church are treated still in 2022.
Yeah.
It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't remember if it was from this talk, but there was a talk that talked about homogenizing the differences in roles between men and women. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That sounds like something they'd say in the 70s. I mean, but it's 2022 and leaders are still raising eyebrows at women that work outside the home. It's like, come on, it's, we're further ahead in history than that. At least most of us are. But I can read you. There's one more quote. This is the one I really had a problem with. It says, those who do not fully understand the Father's loving plan for his children may consider the proclamation no more than a changeable statement of policy. In contrast,
he's talking about the proclamation of the family.
Yeah, my favorite document.
Yeah.
And he says, in contrast, we affirm the proclamation founded on unchangeable doctrine defines the kind of family relationships where the most important part of our eternal development can occur. So I listened to this talk and I turned to Sarah and I'm like, unchangeable. So polygamy is we're just going to pretend that didn't happen. What's going on with this unchangeable? I mean, if he's talking about unchangeable from the moment the proclamation was issued, okay, I guess. But I don't know. This whole unchangeable thing is it's a it's a moving target, I think.
It's dogma. It's rigidity.
Yeah. It's interesting to me. Like, I think, didn't Brigham Young, didn't he teach like monogamy is a sin or something? I think so. Like, there will never be another, I don't know what he said, I'm paraphrasing, but it was something like the polygamy is the gold standard. And if you do anything else, you're an idiot. Like, but now in 2022, they're saying the gold standard is monogamy. And if you do anything else, you're an idiot. And it's like, which is it? I've never been able to get a good answer on that question from anybody. They're just like, well, just have faith. I'm like, well, that's
A good answer for what question? What's the question?
Oh, the question being if
Because now I want to give you a good one. Like the gauntlet has been thrown.
yeah, let's do it. So it's like, if they're saying that the doctrine of the family is unchangeable, then why has it changed? Why was polygamy initially the only thing that was supposed to be what gets you into the celestial kingdom initially? And they said that was unchangeable at the time. But now they're saying only man and woman, and that's it. Is unchangeable. That's the doctrine.
But that doesn't really sit well with you, because that word unchangeable, you look at it and you go, but there have been changes. So you're like, why are you using the word unchangeable?
Right. How do we reconcile that?
So what would a good answer be for you?
For me?
Yeah.
It's bullshit. Sorry.
Yeah.
that's kind of how.
So you're saying that because you kind of recognize that it's bullshit. And when you ask other people in the church what they think about it, none of them have told you that they think that it's bullshit. So then you're like, nobody's given me a good answer.
Yeah, no, okay. Not one person has ever, and the answer that I am given is always, well, just have faith. Doubt your doubts.
Right.
Cognitive dissonance.
Yeah. Well, whatever President Oak said is true. So don't, it couldn't not be true. It couldn't be bullshit. We can't figure out why it's true, and we're just gonna drive ourselves crazy trying to make it, consistent. And so let's just have faith and not. Right. That's the response you've been getting.
Right. But then at the same time, I'll try and keep this vague. But as we've gone through COVID, there have been lots of statements from the church about appropriate ways to handle COVID, and lots of pushback from members who are normally like, follow the prophet, except on this one thing that differs with how I see the world. Yeah. Like there's another thing that doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, but you're picking and choosing now. Like, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I would love to understand. I mean, I can't read minds, but I would love to understand the thought process or lack thereof with the way people are approaching those issues. Because I'm the same way. I mean, now I just kind of don't really believe anything that the prophet says unless it aligns with my worldview. Then I'll be like, all right, attaboy, good. Like,
I got a question for you, Zach.
Yeah, what's up?
But before you learn how to read other people's minds, how good are you at reading your own?
Oh, wow. I think I might be better at understanding other people than myself, honestly. I'm kind of a mess, but that's another story.
Yeah, that's kind of like where it's all at for me right now. Is like, okay, yeah, what is my mind on this? Because I know there's so much in my unconscious mind that I'm not aware of that drives a lot of what I do.
Right.
I just don't know. So like trying to understand it, yeah, it's hard.
Well, maybe that's a good way to have sympathy for others. If they're, I mean, God knows that, these last 2 years have done a number on everybody's psyche or whatever. So maybe just having a little bit of compassion for ourselves and for others.
Yeah. That's always a good thing. And there are theories when it comes to mind and psychology that what we project out onto others is really a reflection of what our own mind is and doing. So like when we're judging somebody, like if you're looking at one of these quotes and you're saying the word unchangeable, I've got a problem with the word unchangeable, that says something about how your mind works. That says something about something that is unconscious within you, that you have a problem with. Why are you saying that it's unchangeable when it's not really unchangeable? I see evidence of it being changeable, but you're saying that it's not unchangeable and you're kind of struggling with that.
Yeah.
And then that struggle gets projected onto the general authorities. They're doing things wrong. Other people are doing wrong.
Yeah.
I like turning that inquiry inward now. It's become one of my favorite things.
It's healthy.
Yeah. And like seeing other people as a mirror and going, oh, the way that I'm responding to this person right now, that's telling me a little bit about myself. It's telling me about the things that I'm having some issues with. And so on that issue of changeable or unchangeable, what do you think you would need in order to feel at peace?
In order to feel at peace. Well, I think part of it is just accepting that maybe some things are unchangeable. You know, they say death and taxes are the only things you can count on. Those things are unchangeable.
Well, I don't think that taxes are quite as inevitable as death.
Yeah, that's true.
That could be changed.
That could be, yeah. But everybody dies at some point. That's,
Yeah.
I think we can, that is one thing I think most people can agree on nowadays, is that everybody's going to die. So I don't know, maybe making a list of things, because I don't like the word unchangeable. I'm a kind of guy that, you know, I'm an actor. I like to create. I like to have, you know, I don't like boundaries. I like to experiment. And so unchangeable just, it just rubs me the wrong way. But I think realizing that there are things in life that are unchangeable, like the fact that, I don't know, the fact that I am a singer, that is unchangeable. It's like part of my identity. It's part of who I am. That's never going to change. I will always identify with that. The fact that I like bacon, that's unchangeable. That's never going to change. You know? So, and those are good things that are unchangeable. So unchangeable doesn't have to be bad. Maybe.
Well, I like that when I asked you, what would it take for you to find peace? The first word that came out of your mouth was acceptance.
Yeah.
And, you know, whether you're accepting that some things are changeable, or you're accepting that some people are going to call things unchangeable that really aren't unchangeable, or, you know, other people are going to be wrong. Other people are going to do this. Things are the way that they are. You know, that acceptance, I think, is a really important thing when it comes to creating peace. And it's hard to do, because when there's things that we see that just rub us the wrong way, it's really hard to accept it.
Well, yeah, there was only one quote that I wanted to give you from Elder Hamilton's talk. We can throw that into the mix, and then if you want, we can just mull over all this stuff. But this quote was what pushed me over the edge, where I just turned off the TV, and if we didn't have such a nice flat screen TV, I would have thrown something at it.
Really?
But
wow.
Yeah, I was livid when he said this. And what's interesting is, if you look at the church news, they've changed the wording. The wording on the church news is actually a little bit sanitized. It's different from what he said in person in the recording, or the live recording of conference. So, because I think there were complaints. But what Elder Hamilton said was, the Lord operates through conditional if-then statements. Even God's love is subject to conditions. I was done at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Why were you done at that point?
Well, I mean, it first of all, it validates the very hard-lined church members, because they always say it that way, that God is, you know, only loves you if you do X, Y, and Z. And also, I personally feel like that conflicts with what the church actually teaches, which is that God is a loving, merciful God, and he loves you no matter what. There's so many Uchtdorf talks and Holland talks about, no matter what you've done, there's always hope, and God always loves you. But here Elder Hamilton is saying literally the opposite thing. And I see a conflict in doctrine there. It was almost like he was up there teaching false doctrine in that talk.
Or maybe he was actually saying what they really believe instead of obfuscating.
That could be.
You know, like we said that God loves everyone and that it's not conditional, but the way that we act is conditional.
Right. Well, and I picked this apart with one of my friends who's very TBM. I think it's healthy to have a couple of those. And I'm like, dude, so help me understand this. And he's like, well, love is not the same thing as consequences. And I'm like, okay, help me and more. I'm getting there. What do you mean? He's like, well, your kids, you love them, but you will still impose consequences if they misbehave. And that clicked for me a little bit more, but I don't like framing it, you know, as a love thing, you know, because saying that love is conditional. I mean, my love for my kids is not conditional. They'll annoy the hell out of me sometimes, but I still love them. And the way that Hamilton framed it, it's like God will only love you if you do this, this, and this. And I think that's a really dangerous way to frame it.
What did they reword it to?
They said the Lord operates through conditional if then statements, and then just left off the part about love is conditional. That was completely scrubbed from the online text. I think they were hoping people wouldn't notice, but I noticed.
Wow.
Yeah. And then it begs the question, like, why did they remove it? Did they remove it because it was embarrassing to the church, or because they knew it was wrong, or they just want to pretend it didn't happen? I don't, but yeah. I have yet to see a quote that damning, in a long time. It's just like, this is just flies in the face of everything the church claims to stand for. I mean, you want to call yourself a Christian loving church, and then you say something like that. And those talks have to go through lots of revisions and approvals and vetting. And so the first presidency must have approved that he said that,
What do you think God's love is?
Well, I can tell you what I like to think it is. I might be wrong.
You can't be wrong about what you think it is.
Oh, that's true. I think it's way more than we can comprehend.
Yeah.
Because we are so much harder on ourselves than we are on others. So I think it's the same way with God. I think he is like, just like, you're doing your best, and I will accept that as long as you were trying, sincerely trying, or as TBMs like to say, they like to use the word striving. As long as you are striving, I will, I'll do the rest. It'll be okay, and
striving and trying to what?
To be the best version of yourself. And you're not just, coasting through life. I do think that God expects us to make an effort, a sincere effort.
That sounds like a condition, Zach.
God damn it. Well, you got me there, Glenn.
I'm just curious about where you are on this with so God's love is like, how would a person know that they are being loved by God?
I think in their darkest moment, if they are still, well, some of us, especially Sarah and I, struggle with anxiety. Even when it's our darkest moment, sometimes we don't feel love. But if we at some point are able to feel peace, even in bad situations, or if we've made bad choices, I think that's an indication that God still loves us. And I think it's being able to differentiate between love and, hey, I have these high expectations for you that I want you to reach. I'm going to help you get there. And I'm not going to condemn you for not being there yet, but I would like you to try and get there. I think I'm okay with that.
So are you're saying that a person would know that God loves them when they feel a sense of peace?
Sure.
So in situations where somebody is feeling a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety, does God love them during that time?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Why are they feeling stress and anxiety instead of peace then?
There was I think it was one of those things on the Mormon channel or on BYU TV, Hope Works, I think it was called, and they were talking about how to feel the Spirit even when you're depressed, and how it's like a fog. That
depression is like a fog.
It is, yeah. And they were saying, like, think back to all the times that you did feel the Spirit and try and recall all the times that you felt God love, that you felt God's love for you. And I think, at least for me, as someone who does struggle with anxiety, I think that has always worked. So if I'm feeling anxious or depressed, I'll think of a time where I wasn't, where I felt peace, and then that feeling will often return, and then I'll know that I'm okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's smart, because the way that our brains store memory is by emotion.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this filing system. Like certain memories come up, and then we feel the feelings that were associated with that experience that we had. So if you're feeling anxious and you think back to a time where you felt peaceful, just bringing up that recall in your mind will help create that sense of peace in your body.
Nice.
I'm curious though. I'll just tell you, what if God loves you all the time, whether you're able to feel it or not?
Oh, I'm sure he does.
Yeah. So that feeling of peace, is that God's love, or is that just your feeling peace? Like the cloud of depression, for anxiety, that's just stuff that's going on within your own psyche. The peace might also be stuff that's going on with your own psyche.
Sure.
The love of God might always be there, regardless of what you're feeling.
Yeah, no, totally.
Okay.
You just reminded me of something funny. I have a lot of friends that are atheists. I was actually atheist for a while, and then decided not to be. That was like 2 years ago. But I used to tell all my atheist friends in high school, I'd be like, God loves you, whether you believe in him or not.
Yeah.
And they'd always be like, Zach, can you just shut up? Like, but I mean, it's true. I mean, he's definitely there, whether we can feel it or not. It's, yeah, I like that. It's like
do you think, you said he, you think God is a he?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I like the whole Heavenly Father, Heavenly Mother dichotomy thing. Oh man, that was something else they said in conference. They said, don't talk about Heavenly Mother. Yeah. And I know why too. I was talking about it with a friend. We're like, we think it's because if you talk about Heavenly Mother, then the brethren are worried that you'll put an S on the end of mother, and you'll start hypothesizing about how many Heavenly Mothers there are.
Oh, and so it'll raise the ugly head of polygamy again.
Right. Yeah. So, and they don't want that. But yeah, no, I think God is a dude. I think that feels right to me, because I've got a dad and I've got a mom. For me personally, like maybe it's different for somebody else. Maybe he takes different forms for people that need it. For me, because I've got a parent, a mom and a dad, that's what resonates with me. But maybe it's different for somebody else. I mean, who knows, So
yeah.
I will say, here's the interesting thing. I mean, we talk about this whole like kingdoms thing from before, and God's love and what it really is. I think it's possible. Here's one doctrine I agree with. I think it's possible for God to be loving and stern at the same time. Like I think of my own dad, and how he parented growing up. He was very loving, but also he didn't put up with any of our crap. And this is just a funny anecdote. We're driving down the road, and we had managed to ruin Christmas for the second year in a row by just being brats.
Was that you that did that? I was wondering.
Oh yeah, it was me.
Yeah, Christmas was totally ruined for me that year. I didn't know that was your fault.
Yeah. No, we were horrible. Oh man. So many stories. Yeah. So we're driving down the road and we turn around. We were going to go, I don't know, to some Christmas show or something. And we didn't go. We turn around, go home. And my dad's like, Merry Christmas, kids. And my little sister pipes up. She goes, we can still make it a Merry Christmas. But at the same time, we got home. My dad made us some hot chocolate. And so we didn't get to go see the Christmas show, which whatever. I mean, my childhood was not totally ruined because of that. We didn't get to go see it, but we had a nice memory at home. We had some hot chocolate. And so even though my dad brought the hammer down and enacted a consequence, he still loved us and did something nice for us when we got back. I think that's probably what God's like. To say that God is completely 100% like just, oh yeah, do whatever you want. Like, I don't know if I think we have to be careful with that, because it's really easy. Like I have heard people say like, God's cool if you kill people. Like we got to draw the line somewhere, like,
well, why doesn't God step in and prevent that from happening?
I don't know. agency or
Because
something.
like you said with your dad, like he'll lay down the law and he'll step in and say, okay, enough is enough. I'm not going to let you, he wouldn't let you get away with your shit, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
like this God,
Yeah. I've never understood that. I mean, growing up, we were always told it was people have their agency, but there's been a lot of things that have happened in the last couple of years. I'm just like, dude, where were you? Like,
yeah,
what are you doing? Like, no disrespect intended, but yeah. I don't know how much divine intervention is permitted, or if there is such a thing, but it
Mm.
would sure be nice if there were.
Mm.
Um,
Why would it be nice?
well, it would make things easier, but maybe life isn't supposed to be easy.
So Satan's plan was the way to go.
Sure. Not gonna lie, I think it would have made a lot of things easier, but maybe it would have infringed on
It's not
people's
too
freedom.
late to become a Satanist, is your sister's saying in the car. You can do it.
I do know people that do that. Sarah would be probably not on board with that, but yeah, I don't know.
That's not in your agreement. Like it's not okay for you to become a Satanist.
Probably not. No. I watch a lot of horror movies though. That's as close
Okay.
as I get.
All right.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't think any of us really know who God is. I think that's the bottom line. Is everybody thinks they know, but I mean everybody's version of God is different, even within the same religion.
Yeah.
So who really knows?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's why a lot of my shift is, or a lot of my focus has shifted and changed over the years, where I'm like, as I'm sitting here having this conversation with you and I'm asking you questions about what you believe, instead of arguing about things that, I don't see that way.
Yeah.
It's this way, like that's how I used to be. You're like, oh, you think it's that way? Well, but it's this way. Like it makes more sense to be this way. I'm much more interested in now finding out about you, like by asking you these questions. And every once in a while I'll throw in a little thing like, do you see the contradiction you're saying there? Just because I'm curious to see how you respond to it.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think everybody has a different view of everything around them. And when we express that, it's going to be different than what other people think. And you can argue about it, or you can be curious about it and get to know, like, what is what you experience things that I'm never going to experience.
Yeah.
Never. And I could learn from that.
Wow.
So,
well, thanks.
so yeah, I agree. I don't think anybody knows who or what God is either, but everybody has a sense of it for themselves. And that's fascinating to me, whether you're an atheist or not. Like you're
Definitely.
you're making a stand about what you think on this issue.
Yeah. Well, and that's one thing that's so scary and exciting is for those of us that have decided to step away from the church in one way or another, then it's up to us to decide what we believe because we're not being told it anymore.
Yeah.
So, and talking with you tonight, and I'll be frank, with most people I talk with them, like, yeah, this is what it is. And this is how I see the world and whatever. But talking with you, it's helped me realize I really don't know. Like I dug a lot deeper tonight, and it's like, there is a lot that I believe it because it feels good, but I don't really have any proof of it. And that's what I accuse religious people of doing all the time. You believe this because it feels good to you, but you don't really know. And yet that's what I'm doing.
I think it's what we're all doing though, Zach, because
Yeah.
when you really ask yourself, like, what do you know? How do you know it? I think there's way more that we take on faith and assumption and just plain ignorance than anything that we really have a lot of solid, direct knowledge for. And so getting comfortable in that space of uncertainty has been one of the greatest gifts of the modern faith crisis.
Yeah. Well, I do have one last question that I'm still struggling with. I feel like there's some basic things, like basic good aspects of human nature that we should all agree on. that over the last couple of years, I've seen people flush down the toilet. Like, we're going to be rude to each other. We're going to fight over really stupid things. Like when Will Smith slapped Chris Rock, I'm like, this is going to become political in 3 seconds. And then it did.
I loved that he did that.
What?
I loved it. I loved that he did that.
Just boom, right there. But I just, to me, it's like people, there's basic, like just being kind, you know, like I was listening to what Chris Rock said. And I'm like, dude, you can't say that. Like, I feel like as a human race, we used to all agree more on what good behavior was. And now there's lots of people that are just like, I'm going to stand up for what I think is right, even though it's like rudeness. Is there a possibility that I'm wrong and that maybe it's okay to be rude sometimes? Like, now I'm questioning everything after tonight. Like, it's like, is there some rude behavior that's justified? You know, I don't know.
Well, I think there's a difference between justified and socially acceptable. And the reason that I liked that Will Smith got up there and said, okay, so you're going to assault my wife in front of millions of people on TV with your words and ideas. And that's going to be okay. But for me to get up and slap my hand across your face, that's where we're having an outrage. You know,
Well
like
said. Yeah, sure.
There's violence that's going on both sides. And one of them is socially acceptable. That's just become part of our culture. It's okay to stand up and make fun of somebody to their face, and everybody will laugh and pretend like it didn't hurt someone. And you know, I do think that things like that are going to change, but not yet, because people seem to think that Will Smith was way out of line for doing that.
Right.
And, you know, I mean, I'm not saying he should have done it. But I'm kind of glad that it makes this comparison, at least for me in my mind, as I'm thinking about it. Like, what is the difference between physically assaulting somebody and emotionally and verbally doing that?
Well, maybe members of the church who are really dogmatic, that see homosexuality as an existential threat, maybe that's how they perceive it as. Now I'm going to get in trouble for saying this. I disagree with this thought, but maybe they see it as an emotional, spiritual threat. Like, it actually harms people. Like, they believe that.
I think they do. I think a lot do.
Yeah. I mean, they're wrong, but it's, you know, they feel that.
But it goes back to what we said earlier. We're raised in the church. We're taught certain things. We're taught not to question. We're taught just to accept. And so that's what happens. And they're told in these conference talks and others over and over again that this is the big evil in the world now. But I think a lot of people have struggled over this, because they're like, that doesn't feel right to me. No. And it is kind of a litmus test. It's this little spur in the side that makes you choose. Like, am I going to choose loving people, which is what the Savior's message is supposed to be, or am I going to choose vilifying them and saying that I love them?
Right. This is so horrible. I can leave you with this if you want. I saw a meme the other day, and it cracked me up, and I chose not to share it on social media. I have to be so careful. Just the nature of what I do for a living. Got to be really careful. But it was Christ is on the cross, and there are these two people down there, and they're talking, and the first guy goes, what's he in for? And the second guy says, he told everybody to be kind. And the first guy goes, no, that'll do it.
Yeah.
So
I like that. It's a good meme.
Yeah. Sums it up.
Yeah. All right, Zach. Well, thanks for reaching out. I like talking with you. If you ever want to do it again, you know how to get hold of me.
Thank you. This was really eye-opening. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Cool. I'm going to go watch the Suns game.
Enjoy.
All right. Okay. Talk to you later, Joe. See you.
Goodbye.
Put down the weapons that you use against yourself. You don't need them anymore.
Hey there. Thanks for listening all the way to the end. Now, I really hope that you enjoyed today's episode. I have more to say about this topic, and I'm going to do that with a follow-up behind-the-scenes sharing time episode on Patreon. So, If you're in a position where you can throw me a few dollars each month to support the work that I put into creating this podcast, please come and support me on Patreon, where you'll also get access to additional content. Did you know that I also create sharing time episodes that are available only to Patreon subscribers? I've been doing that for a few years, so there's a lot of content there that you can have access to. So please come and support this podcast if you can. I greatly appreciate it.
Hi, this is Hillary.
Matthew, Ryan,
Carol,
Keith,
Ashley, and I like to play bingo online while listening to Infants on Thrones.
You can comment on this episode on the website, infantsonthrones.com.
And if you really like what you hear, give the Quorum a 5-star rating and write a short review on iTunes.
I did.
Anyone for the closing prayer?
My worst crime is an inside job. Dark thoughts taking over like an inside mob. I tune into the scene between the eyes and take a breath.
Thank you for listening to Infants on Thrones.
I sit still and watch the thoughts float past me. Never mind the future, never mind what the past be. I like to jump and let the universe catch me. 3, 4, watch the beauty blow past me. I keep my pockets light, destination in sight. Keep my actions elevated to compassionate heights. I'm walking past the fight, laying down on Sunday night. Choosing love when I pick up this mic. So we can make love.
All right, let's give this a shot. This is from thechurchnews.com, which everyone should know. The church is the Mormon church. I mean, you don't even have to say Mormon. You don't have to say Latter-day Saints. You can just call it the church. I mean, it's the church. So thechurchnews.com, Elder Tad R. Callister. And I think that Tad is actually Todd, really. I mean, I think somebody in Boston was saying Tad, and they just wrote it down as Tad, and it became a name. So I don't think that Tad is like a legitimate name. I think it's a bastardization of Todd. I'm pretty sure. I think I haven't fasted to see for sure, but I do feel a pretty strong burning in my bosom or somewhere about it. So Elder Tad R. Callister wrote this article called "A Fence at the a fence at the top, or an ambulance at the bottom." All right, Tad. Tad says, "If you were asked, what is the greatest challenge facing our nation today, how would you respond? The economy, national security, immigration, gun control, poverty, racism, crime, pandemics, climate change?" You know, what's funny, Tad, like all of those things are legitimate challenges that are facing the nation today, but the one at the top of my list is that people in this country don't really know the power that they have in their own bodies, in their own mind. So it's a kind of ignorance that we do things that create conflict just within our own psyche, within our own beings. We create disharmony, and we don't have peace in our own hearts. That's what I would say is the greatest challenge facing our nation today. But anyway, I digress. Let's go back to Tad. While each of these is a valid concern and deserves attention, I haven't read this, by the way. I'm going into this cold, so I hope he doesn't say what I just said, because then I'm going to feel dumb. Okay, while each of these is a valid concern and deserves attention, I do not believe that any of them strikes at the heart of our greatest challenge, a return to family and moral values. To put our prime focus on other challenges is to strike at the leaves, not the root. I do agree with that. Not the root of the problem. It is, as some have noted, to put an ambulance at the bottom of the cliff rather than a fence at the top. Okay, I guess that's clever. You're putting an ambulance at the bottom of the cliff rather than a fence at the top. Okay. The family, a proclamation to the world, confirms the essentiality of the family unit to the well-being of society. It just confirms it, you guys. The family is ordained of God. Marriage between man and woman is essential to his eternal plan. The proclamation then warns, it's warning us, you guys, that the disintegration of the family will bring upon individuals, communities, and nations the calamities foretold by ancient and modern prophets, end quote. And then concludes, quote, we call upon responsible citizens and officers of government everywhere to promote those measures designed to maintain and strengthen the family as the fundamental unit of society, end quote. It was the year 1833. The first president of the church had been reorganized. The first presidency, I mean to say. Composed of Joseph Smith, the prophet, Sidney Rigdon, first counselor, and Frederick G. Williams, second counselor. I don't know why I'm doing this voice, it just sounds like fun. One might wonder what new truths, what divine disclosures, what breathtaking insights would be revealed to this newly called First Presidency. Certainly, glorious truths were revealed. See Doctrine and Covenants 93. I wonder if I really did go to Doctrine and Covenants 93, if I would see glorious truths being revealed there. But the climax of this revelation focused on the basics of the gospel, for in essence, each of these men was instructed to... I don't know if I could even keep reading this. It's just this rigidity. There's so much rigidity and lack of imagination in here, from my perspective, from what I can see. Sorry, Tad. Anyway, the message to these men likewise applies to all of us. We must first set in order our homes to have a prosperous society. Yeah, I agree with that, but I think the home to set in order is your own mind, your own ability to be flexible, to be accepting, to be compassionate, to be loving, not to rigidly stick to your own way of seeing things without... Anyway, okay, I'm starting to get a little worked up here. And I've got power inside of my body to control how I feel. And I really don't want to work myself up in things like this. So let's see. Yeah, I'm doing this in preparation to have a conversation tonight with Zach. And Zach came on a couple months ago as a Millennial PIMO. He's back. And I just cannot stomach any of this stuff from Ted R. McAllister. So I'm just going to push pause now, and I'll wait for my conversation tonight with Zach. How's that? Are you okay with that? Do you agree? Anybody listening? Anyone there? Hello?
Thank you for listening to Infants on Thrones.